Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for attending the press conference this afternoon. My name is Allison Struck, and I am the Executive Director of the Sioux Falls Public Schools Education Foundation. Today we're here to talk about the Student Success Fund, which is a program of the Education Foundation. For the last 2 years, the Education Foundation has been partnering with the Huether Family Foundation and the Sioux Falls School District to meet students' basic needs. Thanks to a generous $10,000 donation from the Huether Family Foundation, we launched the Student Success Fund in the fall of 2018. Working with the Department of Student Services and the social workers, we started providing personal hygiene products, clothing for families fleeing domestic abuse, winter coats, boots, hats, and mittens, laundry detergent, school supplies, undergarments, bus passes for high school students, and GED scholarships for students who want to take the test but cannot afford the exam fee. Throughout this process, we evaluated the requests that we received, and we've been surprised a couple times. One of those was when we had social workers requesting alarm clocks and batteries. And when we met with Patty and her team, what we learned was that there are parents who have to be to work at 5 in the morning, and so there are 8 and 9-year-olds who are at home who not only have to get themselves up and ready for school, but they're also responsible for getting younger siblings up, dressed, and out the door. We know how important attendance is, and so the alarm clocks and the batteries were just one tool that we could use to help our kids. Earlier I had mentioned the bus passes for our high school students, and for $30 a month, we can give students access to the city bus routes, which can get them to their assigned high school, but then it also gives them the ability and the independence to seek and maintain outside employment, which for our teenagers, that's something that's really important to them. A lot of them want to work, but they don't have reliable transportation, or they don't have an adult who's able to get them to a job or to pick them up and drop them off when they need to be there. In the fall of 2019, the Huether family donated another $10,000, and since September, 25 schools in the Sioux Falls School District have accessed the Student Success Fund. The goal has always been to serve students who might otherwise fall through the cracks. We know that there are great organizations here in Sioux Falls who are doing good work, and our funds are truly to support those kids whose families can't access other resources. Through this public-private partnership, we have been able to fill gaps for students across the district. And I'm very excited to report that today we received another $10,000 donation from the Huether Family Foundation. This has been about collaboration from the beginning. We have worked with the educators who are the boots on the ground. They're the ones going into the homes, they know the family situations, they understand their challenges, and they can provide these items, especially the personal hygiene ones, while respecting the students' privacy and their dignity. Kylie Huether will be sharing additional information about the Student Success Fund and why her family chose to get involved. Then Dr. Maher will speak, and we hope that after we've shared, individuals will get involved and support kids here in Sioux Falls, but also be active in their own communities, because something that we know is that these needs are not unique to Sioux Falls. We need to find community champions like the Huether family across South Dakota who can work with their school districts to provide some of these hidden needs that our students have and that we don't always talk about. So thank you, and Kylie will come up next.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Allison. My name is Kylie Huether, and I am representing the Huether Family Foundation today with my parents Mike and Cindy Huether and my husband David, all in attendance. Today, I don't intend to tell you a story about how a foundation donated X dollar amount to the Sioux Falls School District. Rather, I want to tell you a story about how a family started asking questions at the dinner table that translated into making a difference for students in our community. I grew up in Sioux Falls. I am a proud graduate of Washington High School, and I believe that public schools are the best way to impact our future or in any community. In a time when our governor and state legislature continue to threaten education funding and lack the attention to solving for real issues facing our school district, I asked myself, what can I do? 2 years ago, there was a voice in my head that urged me to dig a little deeper. So I reached out to Allison through a simple Google search. I started asking her the questions that were stuck in my head. If a teacher sees a student in need, what happens? If a school counselor or a social worker identifies a student in need of basic items, what resources do they have? What happens to a kid that doesn't have access to clean clothing? Allison graciously took my questions and she started digging. She went to her colleagues, her administrators, educators throughout all different types of age groups. She went to counselors and she went to social workers. She found out what was actually happening on the front lines in our schools every single day. When Allison took her findings and presented them to my family, our family was forever impacted. To start, we discovered that if a teacher saw a need for a student, they immediately go to their counselor. Then the counselor will then report any findings to a social worker, and the social worker is then responsible for reaching out to the school or to the students' homes. I had no idea that we had over 30 schools in our school district, and we only had 9 social workers. So that means that every social worker is responsible for multiple schools. In addition, these social workers are conducting home visits every single day, and they had a budget of $500 to deal with whatever situation may arise for the year. They encounter homes where a parent may have recently lost a job, kids may be in temporary housing who are constantly being moved to a new location every week or every month or every year. They run into homes where parents are working 3 jobs and probably aren't around that much to support their children. They run into homes where guardians are on drugs, where homes have domestic violence. They may run into a living arrangement where 12 people are living in a 1-bedroom apartment. On top of that, in these homes, pantries may be bare, bathrooms maybe don't have soap in them, but bed bugs may be in mattresses, boots may be 3 sizes too small, power bills may not be paid, or students may not have access to a bus pass to get them to a job. This is the job of a social worker. They see the real issues, and God bless them. What we found after talking to Allison is she told us a story of how a social worker had recently gone into a home and found that there were bed bugs in the home and that the child had bites up and down their legs. The social worker confronted the mother and said, "Have you considered getting cream for your child's bug bites?" And she looked at the social worker and said, "I can't afford it." That social worker then immediately went to Walgreens. She did what I think anyone would do. She got the access to the cream and she bought it out of her own pocket. I can't imagine how many times social workers used to run into scenarios like this. Immediately after hearing this situation, my family donated $10,000 to start the Student Success Fund. I think of this as an emergency response vehicle. These are funds that are used to stop the bleeding. When a social worker finds a need and they need immediate access to something, they use these funds. Then they work on a longer-term solution with other quality nonprofits throughout the city. Another issue that Allison shared with us was the lack of access to clean clothing. On a regular basis, teachers see students that maybe wear clothes 5 days in a row. They may run into a Head Start program where kids have accidents. In the worst case scenarios, they may run into a student that has cockroaches in their sweatshirt hoods. My family, I think, immediately thought maybe the response is to buy clothing and have clothing in all schools, but that wasn't what students really wanted. They just wanted their clothes cleaned. It's something that is hard to comprehend, but if they're moving all the time or they don't have that many things in their life, maybe just having their clothes cleaned is the answer. So thank you to a partnership with Carl's, we were able to provide 3 schools with washers and dryers and detergent. When the washer and dryers were actually being installed in one of the schools, Allison told us that she noticed that there was a student that actually walked up to the technician and simply said, "Thank you," an elementary school student. Many times, kids don't know how to help themselves. It isn't fair, but the reality is that our schools are not just for learning these days. They are for protection, food, mental health services, healthcare, and so much more. If you have that voice in the back of your head saying you should spend some of your time making an impact for others, I would encourage you to turn to Allison or start asking questions to educators in your community. You don't have to solve the state education funding formula, but maybe you can help get an elementary school student an alarm clock so that they wake up for school on time. One last story. By coincidence, 2 days after our family gave our initial donation, Allison reached out and said, "Your funds are already in use." 2 days after our donation, Allison said that a mother had come to Sioux Falls with her 2 children. She was fleeing domestic violence. She left the home with only the clothes on her back and her 2 kids. Our donation was able to get those kids warm clothing because it was winter time and food for the next couple of days. Our donation doesn't change the fact that those kids were going to have to start their lives over in an unfamiliar community. But what it did do is stop the bleeding before the social workers could get them with the help that family deserved. Our foundation couldn't be more proud of the way that these funds have been being used, and we thank Allison and the whole school district for everything that you do every day. We know that it isn't easy, so whatever we can do to help, we're here. Thank you. Dr. Maher?
I've got some prepared comments to address the group with, and they all seem woefully inadequate after listening to Kylie speak. She gave messages that I think maybe in the school district that we just kind of learned to live with. But thank goodness for Kylie and for her family that our community is saying we can do better. It seems like I heard that for about 8 years from somebody in an office downtown. I will get back to the prepared remarks here. Mike, Cindy, and Kylie Huether have been great friends to the Sioux Falls School District for a number of years. In fact, in the mid-1990s, Mike and his family were champions who drummed up support for a bond issue. They worked tirelessly to gain that community support, and ultimately we passed a bond issue that set equitable space up in our buildings across the district for not only space but technology standards for each of our Sioux Falls School District. I would tell you, we talked last year prior to passing the bond, and we still talk today about the benefit that we see as a school district with that vision and forward thinking from that bond in the 1990s. As Kylie mentioned, she's a graduate from Washington High School. Cindy coached tennis and did a number of philanthropic deeds in our schools through the years. And of course, Mayor Mike made his mark as a businessman and as the mayor of the city of Sioux Falls. They continue to give back all these years later. And today we're going to talk specifically about the Student Success Fund that they established in concert with the Sioux Falls Public Schools Education Foundation. The Student Success Fund is really an example of benevolence for basics. They really take care of the basic needs of kids and families, and they do it every day, every day. Our social workers, our counselors, our principals, they can all access those funds in emergency situations when no other community or school resources are available. The Huether Family Foundation is making a difference in the lives of our city's kids every day. The framework that they've created and that the Sioux Falls Public Schools Education Foundation is carrying out is simple, and it's something that can be replicated in every community across our state, large or small. I guarantee you that there are children like those described by Kylie earlier who would benefit from a Student Success Fund. And I would challenge donors across our state who have their hearts to meet up, who have their hearts in it, to meet up with folks in your school district and try to do something, develop something in a very similar vein. The dollar amount really doesn't matter. What matters is that when basic needs are met, food, clothing, shelter, students are able to achieve at high levels. Their motivation and desire improves dramatically when their basic needs are met. They see hope for the future. It reminds me, I'll go off script for a minute, that reminds me of one of my favorite sayings, and my daughter just put it in the bedroom of my granddaughter. And it's an Eleanor Roosevelt quote that says, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." And when you meet the needs of the basic needs for kids, they do have beautiful dreams, and this helps allow them to think through that and be able to carry those out. In closing, I'll say we're so grateful to the Huethers for stepping up. You continue to make an impact in our city, in our school district, and in our state. We thank you for creating such a strong formula for student success. Thank you.